Hello and welcome to today's video on sublimation printing. If you tuned in from the very beginning, you remember the very first video. We converted our Epson EcoTank printer into a sublimation printer by filling the EcoTanks with sublimation ink. We did a quick project in our next video that was just using text in Microsoft Word, black text, and we sublimated we use the sublimation printer to print that to put onto our mug. Today we're going to actually do something with color on our mugs, so I'm really excited to see how this turns out. Before we start, just a little bit about our supplies. I'm going to be using the Cricut mugs that they sell for either the fusible ink, but they also work for sublimation printer. You need your sublimation printer and our sublimation sheets, papers. And then other than that, we're going to be using Microsoft Word to create today's template for our sublimation printing. So with that, let us begin. And I'm going to go into a couple of things before we get started. My engineering mind takes over and I start to get into the process of how we're going to get the most perfect product we can first shot through. And so I go through and I think, okay, well, what are my specifications? I know it sounds really nerdy. I'm sorry, that's just the way I think, but my specifications are that I need to have some sort of a printout that's going to fit within the parameters of the cup. So there are a lot of people out there that will shoot the measurements, but I wanted to verify for sure what my measurements were going to be. So what I did was I tried to put together a method that we could use that would give us a perfect sublimation sizing and coverage on our cups every time we use our sublimation ink on a mug. So I'm going to walk you through kind of the little things that I did before I even started to make sure that I get the most perfect outcome possible. Okay, so we're going to switch cameras and we're going to go over to the Cricut mug press machine and we're going to measure some things on there. So the first thing I do is I take my cup, and with this open here, we're not heating it up yet. This should be cold, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my cup, and I'm going to set it down, and I'm going to kind of press it against. What I want to do is I want to take this half of the cup and press it against the half that's on the left side of my press, okay? When I do that, I usually try to make sure that the handle's just a little bit into this green, or more in the green and a little bit into the white. Understand that when you push this lever down, you have this cylindrical shape and the left side moves in to push it against the right side. Okay, so when you think about that, if it's leaning against this side already, it's not going to move as much as if you were going to place it straight up against the back or over to the left hand side or to the right hand side. Okay, so you would push this down and it's going to slide a little bit, make its clicking sound, and there we go. The next thing I do is I want to make sure that I am going to cover the exact sides that that are going to come in contact with my sublimation heat, okay, or the heat press. So I just grab a little pencil and I make just a little small mark on the right side, right on the right side, and then I go over to the left and I also make a mark there, okay, so that it shows up on my cup. And it's just pencil, so it'll even rub off with your hands. If you handle it too much, you won't even see the pencil mark. Okay, so now I have the parts verified here on my cup that are going to come into contact with my printer, okay, or with my sublimation drawing or image that I'm going to transfer. Okay, now I am good to go ahead and start preheating my press. So I will go ahead and plug that in while it starts to heat up. Okay, now we're going to go back to the other side. Okay, so now that I have my cup and I have my lines drawn on it from when we put it in the mug press, I'm going to make myself a template that I can actually have in front of me. I'm very visual. I like things that are tangible, that I can hold and I can bend and I can fold. So we're going to make our own little template to help us get the perfect fit for whatever it is we're going to do. Okay, so the design that I'm going to use on this today is going to wrap around the whole entire cup. But this is, it's going to be so much, such a beneficial thing to do if you're working with something like just a logo, so that you know exactly where to place it and what it's going to look like on your mug before you actually go ahead and put it in the heat press. because once it's on there, if it's not what you wanted, you're kind of stuck with it. So this is a way that I kind of figured I can sit here and I can play with things, I can move things around and decide exactly where it is that I want something. Okay, so I'm going to take my plain piece of copy paper and I'm going to just grab one of the edges and I'm going to line up that white piece of paper with that. And I'm going to make sure that the bottom of the mug aligns with the side of the cup, okay? I'm going to put this down just so I can line it up. And then I'm going to take it around to the other side and I'm going to bend this paper back until it lines up perfectly with the line I drew, okay? Once I mark it, I can take it off and then I can put it back on my desk and lay it down so I can get a perfect alignment, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this paper and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it back around my cup again, okay? Lining it up with that same first line that we did. And I'm going to grab my pencil again and I'm going to make sure once again that that paper is flush with the bottom, okay? And I'm just going to grab a pencil and I'm going to draw a line inside. Okay, so I'm going to set it down on the desk to make sure that it's flush and straight against the cup and then draw my line. Okay, so when I open it up, this is what I get. So now I know the exact dimensions of what my cup are going to be. So I will take this to my paper cutter and I can trim this excess side here and a line across here. Okay. I've already pre-measured before and created my template, so I have my template ready to go. And this is what I end up getting, is this piece of paper like this. Okay, so this is the exact size I need to wrap my image around my cup. Okay, so now I have exact dimensions and I know I can work with this piece of paper and use this to measure things. Okay, so I was saying, like, if you had a logo and I want to make sure that it's on my cup on the right side so that people can see it, I can place this paper on my mug. Think about the size that I want the logo. I can even measure here, like say I want my logo to be from here to here. So I can measure the distance and get the exact dimension of what I want. And then I can figure out the placement from left to right. Okay, so this will be something that you can have visually in front of you to get exact measurements. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and let's go into Microsoft Word and we're going to create our template in there. We are going to create this piece of paper that we have right here on our document. Okay, so what I'm first going to do before I start is I'm going to measure, and I have measurements here that I can use since I have a big oversized cutting mat here. So when I lay this down, I measure it across from the left to the right, and I measure 9 and 9/16 of an inch. And so that converts to 9.56 if you convert it into decimals, okay? And you'll need that decimal number. Then if I'm measuring from the bottom to the top of the cup, I measure 3 7/8 of an inch. And that converts to 3.875 in decimals, okay? So now we're ready to create this template in Word. So we will just come over to Word and we're gonna get a blank document. We're gonna go into our layout, okay? And we are gonna change our orientation. We change it to landscape. Now we're going to take our margins and we are going to change them. If you're using Microsoft Publisher, which is what I usually do, there's an option that has none as your margins, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into our setup here. Click margins. Sorry, let me walk you through that again. Margins and custom margins, okay? And we are going to do 0 on the top, 0 on the bottom, 0 on the left, and 0 on the right, okay? It's going to say some margins are outside the printable area of the page. That is fine. Go ahead and say ignore, okay? Because we're gonna modify our settings on our printer and it'll be fine. So we go into insert, okay? We're going to insert shapes and we are going to use a rectangle, okay? We just need to click in there. We don't need to size it or anything. Just click in there. If it's filled, you can go in the shape fill and tell it I want no fill, okay? Make sure you have your handles here highlighted. You're going to go over to the right over here and change your height and your width, okay? So your height is 3.875, okay, and I think this is going to round it a little bit. Microsoft Publisher, I believe, lets you have one more significant digit. Sorry, I'm nerding out on some of you guys, but then the width from the left to the right ends up being 9.56, okay? So there is the shape that we want. Now we're going to come over here. If you've got these handles, click on that. And what you want to do is you want to click on this one here that says behind text, okay? Fix position on the page, okay? That's what you want to do. Then grab this and you're going to move it all the way to the top corner of your page, okay? Because this is what we're going to do. We're going to use those nice straight edges of our sublimation paper to level things out and make sure that everything is straight, okay? Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our image in now. So I've saved my picture on my desktop. So you can just go into Insert, wherever you have it saved. I have it on Pictures, and I'm doing it from this device. I'm doing it from my computer, okay? I'm already in my desktop, so you'll have to change your folders depending on where you're at. And I'm going to use this here. And this is an image we bought a couple of years ago for Father's Day. So I'm going to put this on a cup now, okay? Now, you can see that this image is way too big. The rectangle is behind it right now. So what we have to do is we've got to go down to the bottom and we find this handle here. And we want to make sure we use the corner one because we want to size it evenly. We don't want to stretch it and make it all, you know, weird and wonky. So I'm going to make sure it gets just the perfect size from the top to the bottom of my rectangle. Okay. Now I want this design to go all the way around my mug. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this picture next to it. Okay, now I have a choice that I can make here. This here has extended past the edge of my border or my template, okay? So I can either trim both of my pictures so that they fit evenly into that template. I can trim one of these sides off. I can take this side and trim it off until it gets to the end. But I'm going to just go ahead and move it so that I can fix it. Oh, sorry, we have to do the same thing on here. Come over here, click on this here, and fix position on page, okay? I'm just going to move this behind until it's right where I want it. Done. With that, we're ready to go ahead and print, okay? So go over to your file, print. All right, make sure you've got your correct setting here, okay? We're going to go into printer properties. We're going to make sure that we've got some things going on here correctly. Okay, let's go into more options here. You want to make sure you uncheck high speed and you want to mirror your image. Okay, don't forget to do that, otherwise everything's going to be reversed. Go into your image options. Click on custom, click on advanced, and we're going to work on some of the settings here. Okay. The first thing you want to do is you want to go into that second color mode drop down menu. And you want to go in there. We're going to change some of the parameters in here. Now, sorry, I want to bring up all of my information here so I make sure I have the correct information. So you want to change this to Adobe RGB. Okay, your gamma should be 2.2. And now we're going to work with these figures here. Okay, our brightness we're going to change to 9. Then we're going to go to our contrast. Our contrast we're going to keep at 7. Our saturation will be at 15. And our density is going to be at 4. Click OK to save that. Go into your main over here. And we are going to choose our premium presentation paper matte and change this to high. This is our high quality, okay? Now we're pretty much ready to go. Now, I've already printed this before, but I want to show you guys a couple of things that came out of this when I was printing, okay? I did my first print, and I wasn't happy with what I got. When I first looked at it, and this is what's cool about this is if you're doing one of these mugs, you can actually do 2 on a page. But the first one came out and there were some lines that I didn't like. It's probably hard to see on the screen, but there were some lines that were coming through my printout that I didn't like. So I went through the printer settings and I set some stuff up there. Okay, so I'm gonna move cameras and I'm going to show what I did on my printer to fix this, okay? And this can be done periodically as needed when you find that you're getting a lot of weird lines on your printout. Okay, so here we are here, and here are our main menu on the printers. And it'll vary from printer model to printer model, but here's the general thing that you want to be looking for. Okay, you're going to go into your maintenance. Okay, and I did a nozzle check. I went through that. And then I did the head cleaning. Okay, and then I did the print head alignment. Okay, when I did that, there's a vertical alignment. I did the vertical alignment, and I did a horizontal alignment. Okay, I went through this twice because when I started printing, my quality I was not happy with still. It actually got much worse. On the second time, I got a lot, or the first time, I got a lot of lines coming down, and I wasn't happy with that at all. So then I ran it again, and it was better, but still I could see lines through it, so I still wasn't happy. I did it one more time, and I got a much better printing, which I'm going to grab, because I'm going to actually use this one today, but I put it in a drawer so it wouldn't get any dust on it. So finally I came out with this. Okay, and I'm going to hold these up so you can see the difference in the color. And it was much, much smoother. No lines on my drawing or my printout at all. So this was what I finally decided to use for my sublimation on my cup. Okay, I'm not going to print this out right now since I already have a good copy going on here, but this would set you up for your printing. Okay, so now we are ready to work on applying this to our cup now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my printout now. Okay, now here is the benefit of having this template that we made right here. Okay, I can now put this over my printout, and I'm going to line this up. And remember, I was talking about the significant digits on the printer. Okay, so I have this little line here that is not within what I want. Okay, so I have an option of what I can do. I can either leave it as is. It might get transferred, it might not. Or I can just go ahead and trim it off. I can choose to trim it off from this side here, or I can move my template over to the edge there, to the opposite edge, and then cut this edge here off. Okay, so it's totally entirely up to you. Or I can cut from both edges. The only problem is if it's really thin on both sides, the part that I'm cutting off, I don't advise it, because sometimes if your paper cutter is not super sharp, it'll just kind of bend it a little and you're gonna get a jagged cut. Okay, so I'm gonna choose to cut off a little bit from this opposite edge right here. Okay, so I'm just going to take this over to my paper cutter and cut that off a little bit. And I can take my template there so that I know exactly where to cut. So I'm just going to bring my paper cutter here. And this is what I like about the template. I can fix this before it goes into my heat press or my mug press, because once it's on there, I can't change that. The work is done. Okay. Now another thing I just want to point out too is after I printed this, I let this sit to dry for a couple of minutes, my printout, because if you saw in the previous video where I just did the black ink, I was getting some ghosting and it seemed consistent. And I knew I wasn't rubbing my image up and down in the mug press. So my other thought was maybe that area of my printout is absorbing more ink than the rest of my printout. And so if that ink is still wet, it's gonna run. So I figured, hey, I'll let my printout dry and then I'll try to do the cup again. And sure enough, after doing that, the cup came out with a clean print on it. And so that I realized, hey, I think that may be the case. So if you are getting some ghosting, it might be a good idea to just let it sit a little bit and dry. I know we get anxious and we want to get everything done really quick, but I only left it for about 3 or 4 minutes to dry. And that makes it a little bit easier too, so that if you touch it, it's not going to smudge as easily either. And I think it just makes it easier for the transfer to come out clean. Okay, so now I've cut the excess on the left edge here, and now I'm going to cut the rest of this out so that I have just my image, okay? So I've got a rotary trimmer here that I use that I've had for many, many years, and I love so much. It makes doing these projects really, really well, easy. And it has this little clear plastic piece that goes over it that's like a fluorescent green color, which really helps because my bad eyes can't always tell where the cut is going to be at, and this really, really makes it easy. So let me go through and cut my last side here. And then we have the printout. Oops, I missed it. See, even then, I still missed it. There's a white straight, had a little white on one side. And I'm super nitpicky too when I'm doing my stuff. So that's why I think these processes through and how I can perfect it. I'm still not happy. It's still not exactly all cut off. So I'm going to do one more trim. And then that should be good. And I had mentioned in previous videos that in my engineering, I did a lot of writing processes and test procedures. So I had to make sure that whatever my test procedure instructed you to do, that no matter who did it, the result should be the same. And so when I do my crafting, I try to pick up methods that no matter who tries it should give them the same result. And no matter how many times I try it, I should get the same result. Okay, so now I've cut this out here. And some other little tips that I kind of do to try to make it easier is I like to put my tape on my image before I put it on the mug, okay? And that's to keep it from moving and smudging a lot. So I put my tape on before, and I like to do the little corners a little bit. And I just stick it on. Cut another little piece. And these are other little things that I think of before as well to make it, once again, where there's little error as possible when you're doing this. And when I apply on the cup, you're going to see like why it's so much easier than trying to wrap it around and hold it at the same time. And it just, if you only have one pair of hands, you know, if you got extra people working, then you can have people holding and turning and all that good stuff. But I typically am the only pair of hands working on this. So I like to try to find ways that make it easy to get it done. Okay. Get one more. And I'm going to do a little bit on the top. So remember, when you're taping it, if you're taping it before you put it on, you'll put it down on your desk and you're going to put the sticky side up so it'll grab onto the cup. Okay, so now I have put the tape on. Like I was saying, since it was laying down on the table like that, the sticky side is on this side. So when I put it against my mug, it's going to stick. Okay, so now remember, on this mug, I have lines to tell me exactly where I'm supposed to place this. So what I'm going to do is I put my cup down on the desk or the table, and I make sure this bottom is flush with it, right against the bottom, and then I line this up with the line that I drew with the pencil, and then I make my way around. Okay. And it should go around very, very evenly. And if it is going straight, then you should end up right back up on that line. And I would advise just before you put all the other pieces of tape and attach, to do the two top and then go around and secure the rest, okay? Making sure that it's even on the bottom. Okay. Okay, now I can come around and fold the top parts a little bit. That's a little bit over. Okay, and the other thing is when I have that template now, I have my butcher paper and I just need to measure it a little bit larger than the template that I cut. So before I even started, I took this template, laid it against here and left a little bit of room on all the sides so I knew exactly what the best sides of butcher paper would be. Okay, so then it makes it much easier for me to be prepared and tape things up when I'm not trying to hold everything and measure everything. Okay. Continue going. And I try to use as small pieces of heat resistant tape as possible so I don't layer my images too much. I want to make sure that I'm not causing heat to get dispersed differently in certain areas. And if we start layering a lot of stuff on our image, you'll get, you know, because it's thicker, you'll get an inconsistency of what's touching or the amount of heat that's going to reach your cup. Okay, so I even use not too many pieces to secure the butcher tape. And I have a little bit over the handles, and when it does this, all I usually do is I just grab my scissors and make a little slit up here and a slit here, and I can lay it flat. But if you remember, we measured, it's not gonna even reach that anyways. So I've got this all nice, it's flush on the bottom, everything is good and taped on the bottom. It's super ready to go. Okay, so now I'm gonna change cameras and I'm gonna put it into the heat press. Okay. Now, once again, remember on the heat press, when we're putting it in, remember I said, remember that this right side is going to come into your cup. So if you have this side here against it, it'll move less. So I kind of tip it back so I don't rub the image too much and apply the heat too early, and then push it back, and then put my heat press. There we go. And we're going to just let it take its course, and then we'll check on it in a couple moments. So hang tight. Okay, so it sounds like we are all finished. And I am going to research getting some different butcher paper because I get a lot of burning on my butcher paper and smoky, which I don't like. So let me go ahead and move my heat press over now. And our cup is going to take this now. So you can see all the browning on the transfer or the butcher paper, so I don't really like that. So I'm looking at. So I'm very careful because it's going to be hot, and I probably should be a little bit more patient. I'll let you guys see this, but I'm going to get the tweezers just to be careful. Try not to burn myself here. And you want to try to lift everything, your tape and everything, away, not on top of anything, because still it's hot. You don't want your sublimation printout to be rubbing against anything, okay? So try to pull up and away. Those of you that are used to weeding, it's complete opposite from when you're weeding, right? You're always supposed to pull as close to the surface as possible. In this case, we are pulling away from everything. This piece of, that's the paper, which I just fixed on with two. So that comes off. paper cools quite fast, so take this top tape off. It's not really sticking. Got this other piece that's right here as well. Okay. This one in here that's on the inside, so I can probably grab it from the inside out. I can get the ones from down here as well. These are kind of on the handle. One in here that I have to be a little careful with because the mug is still quite hot. Okay, and I think we're in the good shape now to where it pulls off, and we have got our finished product. Get this out of the way. Here we go. This is what we've got at the very end. And you can see we've got that line that's come here. We've got a little bit of into that little handle. But everything is matched up and it worked around really well. Colors are vibrant. And we've got a really perfect fit of our image on there. So this is pretty happy with us. This came out considerably well. And I think that using that method every time through, you'll get a pretty good product. It's a pretty foolproof at that method. So, and these colors are very, very close to the original image, if not more vibrant. I think when you look at the screen, I feel like these colors are darker than what is actually on the screen itself. It's got a very vibrant color on it. So very, very happy with that. And this is where the image started over and ended. So you can see how that worked out. But overall, very, very happy with the way this came out. So that's another project to do with Microsoft Word. No special product needed. You don't have to use the software for either Cricut or Silhouette. You can, by all means, you can, but you don't have to. I know there's limitations on some of the softwares. For Cricut, people will comment a lot on some of the forums that I've seen that they say that Cricut will give them an error that it's outside of the printing area, and they get a lot of errors like that. I don't think I've gotten anything like that in Silhouette, but once again, like, this is an easy way to get to this. You don't need anything special. You could do this on Google Docs as well if you don't have a copy of Word, or you don't have a 365 subscription. You can use Google Docs to do the same thing, and it's essentially the same process. You look for the same tools in their toolbars and you do it the same exact way. So very, very simple. Hope that when you try this, you have as successful as a run as this turned out to be. Just take your time and, like I say, measure things, really measure things. If you're looking to do a logo, take this, decide what size your logo is going to be, place it here and measure how far is it from the top, how far is it from the bottom, how far from the left or right. And you can just cut, make sure that your perimeter around the logo, when you make your template in Word, is exactly like this. And if you line it up with the lines you've drawn, it will be perfect when it comes out. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, and keep your eyes open. Our next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be opening this guy here, my Cameo Pro, and setting it up and seeing what kind of a project we can do for my first run on this. I've had the very original portrait, and I've had the Cameo 3 for so many years, and so I'm excited to see what the Pro will bring. And I'd love to have you with me as we walk through it and see how it works. Until then, we'll see ya. Bye.